Hello, Elite Team. Welcome to another training that, of course, will take your eliteness to the next level, right? All right. So today we're going to just cover briefly how to log into Dotloop. So Dotloop is our transaction management system, or pretty much our transaction desk. Yes, there are a lot of tools out there that agents are using, but we have decided with Mahoney Elite to basically use Dotloop. So if you're ready, let's go. So our very first step is to, of course, have a property that you're interested in either um, providing an offer for a buyer or preparing a listing. So either way, if you're listing or if you're buying, then what we want to do is to make sure that you create a loop. So you're going to create a loop in Dotloop or a transaction for either type of sale. And let's say, for example, if you have a listing out there and you find a buyer as well, that's called dual agency, where you are the licensee for both parties. Then you do need a loop for your listing and you will need a loop for your buyer as well. Okay, for your seller and your buyer for the same property, two different loops. And we'll get to that in just a second. But as you can see, my first step is I am inside of Nitris, our matrix system, or what we call the MLS for those who are newer agents. I am going to search to find the MLS listing for the property that we are interested in. Okay, so there's several ways to do that. And I am going to first just try to put in the street address, 732. And down at the bottom, if you notice where it says matches, it'll show any property that indicates a match for this street address. All right. Another way to search is the actual street name. And so once again, and one other thing, Texas was here. So we have access to Texas. We want to make sure we click off of Texas if we're not searching Texas, because we're not licensed agents in Texas unless you are licensed in Texas. We're going to go Louisiana. So make sure you have Louisiana there. There's my one match. Another way to search would be by zip code. And this is going to provide you with a list of all properties in that zip code. And as you can see, there's 122 matches in that zip code. That's a lot, but if you don't happen to know the address, you can search there. Also, we can search by city, of course, and it's going to broaden our matches. 553 properties at this time in Shreveport and on the MLS. And then we can search our parish or county. And the reason why it says county is because Texas is connected with the metric system that we're on. And then there's several other ways, but we're going to go ahead and put in that street number and click on results. So that's all you have to do is click on results. All right, so this is a property that we're looking at. This is a great investment property that we have currently on the market. I'm sure you are familiar with this MLS listing. As far as the options are concerned across the board, we have, of course, this one that shows that there's one property with that particular address. We have the photos, map, the history of the property, transaction desk, which is one option to use when doing transactions, but we're going to try to get used to using Dotloop, realist tax information. This MLS number is the most important thing. This is the number that licensees or agents have access to that the public does not necessarily have access to. So MLS number is your main focus when you are looking at properties or working with properties. We can see this is a res type. It is active. This is another function that you need to pay attention to, or status rather, that you need to pay attention to. Is the status active? That means it may be still available to consider for your clients. If it's pending or any other contingency, then that means that there may be an offer already secured for the property and in progress. Okay. And then sold means it had already been sold. So we are looking to work with active properties as much as possible. Anything outside of active, then you should reach out to the listing agent to inquire more if you need to. Here's our property address, the neighborhood, the square footage, bed, total bed, and of course the price range. And it doesn't have a pool, fortunately. But anyway, I'm going to click right in on the MLS to open up our listing. So here is our listing. And I will do another training on the listing details at a later date. But we are interested in creating a Dotloop offer for this property. So here's the address. The reason why I'm coming in here is because I need the information on the address. I need to just, if I hadn't already, to confirm the current listing price of the home. I also, most importantly, need to know who's listing this property. So actually, this one is listed by Mahoney Elite Realty, and the listing agent is, of course, Derek Mahoney, and here's his contact information. And then we have a co-lister there, Mr. J. Hill. Shout out to our elite agent, Hill, co-listing this process with our broker. Excellent, thank you. And then we have their contact email. So you will need to either download this or have this up when you are creating your loop and when you're also creating an actual offer. And if you notice down at the bottom, we have my information there. So let's move on to Dotloop. Okay, now that I actually have a property in the MLS, a listing that I'm interested in creating an offer for, I am going to go over to Dotloop. Once again, Dotloop is our real estate transaction management software. So I went to dotloop.com and I'm logging in. And I do recommend you save all of these tools on your desktop, laptop, and also your phone as an app option so you can work from your phone as you're out. So I'm going to log in. Everyone should have received a welcome and your email address that we have on file is actually going to be your user for this system. And then you would create a password. So you once again would have received from admin, from Mahoney Elite, this welcome. Okay, so if you had not, please reach out to us and let us know. So here I am inside of Dotloop. Yes, so Dotloop does, once again, a lot of amazing things to help us manage our transactions. So think of this as putting your paper contracts in a file folder, a manila folder, and filing them in the old traditional file cabinet that some of you may remember or may not remember, but this is your back office system. We will require you to work in this system for every transaction, and this will help us keep up records and also help you keep your records. So the LREC will require us to keep our records up to 5 years. Okay, that is for agents. They can audit agents, and of course, they can audit brokers. So we want to make sure we keep all records on file. Every transaction that you actually are involved in, you should have record of that transaction, whether it went through or not. And remember, you do not have an action or a transaction if it is not a signed, completed document of all parties involved. Okay, so I can do an offer, but if I don't get a signature from the buyer and then from the seller of the property and the selling agent and myself, that's not a completed document and it won't lead to a completed transaction. Okay, so everything should be put in writing in real estate. Verbals do not count writing. And so what we want to do here at Mahoney Elite is make sure that we keep your records and you keep your records updated and available at all times. And this is also going to help us stay connected with you on what transactions you're working, be it a listing or a purchase. And then we will be able to use this information in order to finalize your commission split. So must have a completed file in order to receive your commission. And we will get to that in another training. So let's go over to Dotloop once again. The most important thing here is your profile link here at the right top half of your Dotloop system. So if I click on profile, it shows the member ID that is assigned to you by the company. And since I am an admin, I also have a Mahoney Elite Realty. So as you all know, I'm also a real estate agent as well. And so I have an agent loop. That's my default. And then I have the company's loop. So when I click on Mahoney Elite as the admin of the company, I can see everyone's loop and keep keep abreast of all our documentation so that we can stay in compliance. All right, so today we're going to actually create a loop and we're going to utilize this property that we're interested in here. So 732 Browning Street. So the first thing that you do when you're creating your loop is you add a loop here. Okay, and before we do that, we have reportings, we have loops, we have tasks, people, and tables. So we're going to add our loop. Very, very simple. So it tells me that I need to verify my email address to continue the search. This may not happen but one time. So I'm going to resend a verification before I get started. And we'll take care of that. Okay, once I click add a loop, here is our add a new loop screen. And so our property, it's 732 Browning. So I'm going to add that in. Now, any property that's officially listed on the MLS will or should pop up with no problem. So as you can see, our property pops up. It tells me who the listing agent is and the listing information. So we'll click here. It asks me, would I like to save time by importing the listing details from North Texas Real Estate Information System? But once again, the matrix systems is also including Texas. So you're going to see a lot of North Texas stuff, but that is still our system. And it gives me the option to auto-populate. So I am going to do that. That's the whole essence of the system. Now, if you don't have a property on MLS or you don't have a property that's not populating, that's fine. You can add that information in. So it provides me automatically with the MLS number, the listing information from MLS, which is great. So I can, I've named my loop. Now I'm going to go to the template, photos, and then finish. So I'm going to continue. All right, now loop template. Here is where Dotloop is wanting you to identify what type of transaction this is. So we're listing. No, it's already listed. A buying loop. Yes, I have a buyer for this property. We also have the option of a listing lease loop. So if you find a lease or a rental property that you work with, then you want to use that option, and then leasing loop when you're actually leasing. So if you're listing a lease or if you have a buyer for that lease, then you'll create that template. And then this is staff. You will not see this section here. All right, so let's go to buying loop because we have a buyer for this property. Now, remember I said any type of transaction that you do, whether it's on the same property or not, you want to create different loops for listing, buying, leasing, etc. Because each transaction is a different set of paperwork requirements. So here I'll have the option to upload a photo, at which I do not have the photo of that property saved inside of my system. So I am going to grab that photo from the listing just for my loop sake. Okay, so let me grab that photo. So here's a photo of the property, and I just want one quick shot. If there is one available, I'm going to save in my photos. Not what I did, just right clicked and save that. Okay, so it should be there. Now I'm going to go back to my Dotloop and see if I can actually upload that. So this is the exciting thing about Dotloop is it does allow you to incorporate photos so that we can identify that property right offhand by picture when we click in. So I am done with the photo upload. Now I am going to finish creating my loop. So since I'm going to prepare a contract, I may not have this information, but then again, you might. So this is a purchase. And as you can see, it gives us options. Is this a listing for sale, listing for lease, purchase, lease, or any other real estate transaction? So we are purchasing because I have a buyer that wants to buy this property. What is the status based on your transaction or your interaction of this property? This property was, this is going to be a pre-offer, okay? It's going to be a pre-offer because I am submitting an offer to the listing agent. You also can have a transaction where you are already, when it's under contract, your contract has been accepted, then you will just switch the status. If you did not get the offer or somehow your contract did not go through, you're going to click withdraw and keep your loop. Keep your information because this is going to let us know and you know everything that you've worked on for the year. Okay, hopefully the last 5 years. Did you sell this property? You'll switch it to sold, or if it was just terminated, you'll just switch here. So these are your transaction statuses. Okay, I'm going to enter the price, the current price that I'm going to offer. I'm sorry, the current sales price right now is 33,000, I believe. Let me go back and see. 35. Now, this will actually be the final number that you all decide upon in the contract, but just to start off, I'm going to put the list price. So it gives me the offer to enter the loop or view the loop once I have that done. Oh, one other thing. Here we're entering a closing date. So whenever you do officially close on your property, you'll put a closing date in there and you'll change the status, of course, and make sure that the sales price is correct. This is the amount that we're going to look at when we review your documents and we prepare commission. Okay, so now we have created the loop. We want to view the loop. Okay, here we are. We're inside of our loop for 732 Brownie. We see that it's a purchase, it's a pre-offer, and we can view details. So this is where you can make changes as you go along, if there are any changes to this property. The most important thing that I want you to get familiar with is because we chose a purchase, we have a buyer, then we're going to instantly have access to a checklist of documents that are required by LREC to complete in order to activate a purchase transaction. You get it? So if I switch this to listing then the documents here will ultimately change. Okay. And it is asking me to adjust the status. The documents may change because we will have listing documents instead of the other. So I'm going to purchase and I'm going to put pre-offer and make sure that my documents are correct. Okay, so here, this is very important for those who are new to Dotloop. Dotloop provides us with the official LREC and Northwest Louisiana forms. And as an agent, as a licensee, you are required to use the most current forms or documents in your transaction. If you do not, if you use an expired document or an outdated document, you can be penalized by LREC. And typically other agents may recognize that if you're sending them an offer, but if you all don't, you could jeopardize once again an infraction. And remember, we talked about infractions with marketing and things like that, but you can get a fine in real estate if you're not properly following all of the rules and regulations and utilizing the appropriate documents. So just know Dotloop will always have the most updated documents. They are linked with the state, the LREC, which is very good for you. So I already know that I am going to use this checklist here. So I am checking off documents that I will use for this transaction. Also, we have our additional documents that you can add to the process. Okay, let's kind of walk through our loop here. Once again, you have your documents. You have your buying documents. So if you click on buying documents, that helpful checklist will minimize. And if you click back off, the initial checklist will be set up. So these are pre-populated forms that we've placed in the system for you. So you will already know what forms generally need to be completed for this type of transaction. This is a buying transaction. Same thing will happen with the listing in lease, etc. So if you need additional forms, you can check out templates. And remember, I just stated all forms are coming from LREC and also Northwest Louisiana Association. So here you will receive choose documents to add. You'll, of course, have Mahoney Elite master documents. And this is where we'll put in documents that you may need that's internal use. We have listing documents, buying documents, listing lease documents, and then of course onboarding documents. Then we have the Louisiana Commission, Real Estate Commission. When I click here, it's going to provide me with every single updated, most current and active licensee usable transaction forms that you could possibly think about that the state has available. So if something comes up, because each transaction could be unique in its own way, you may need something you might need a waiver warranty for one property that you may not need for another. So these are different forms that are available for you. And if you want that form, of course, you just go in. I'm going to add the agency disclosure information pamphlet, which of course should be given out to all of our buyers. I'm going to add that to my loop, and then it will import and say, okay, now I have an agency disclosure information pamphlet along with my agency disclosure form that was already in the checklist. And the other document, look, it was already here, and the other documents that were there. But if I need to get rid of it, I can go into the menu options on the three buttons, and I should be able to archive this document, which is the same as deleting. Archiving is just putting it away. Okay, we don't really like to delete a lot of documents in real estate. So just kind of keep that in mind. Put that away. Okay, so that is how you add a document. Now, how do you open up a document? You simply either click on it or you click on the name of the document. And then, of course, we have options here. You can rename this document. Um, you can make a copy of it. You can get the history behind it. You can print it, download it, signature verification, archive it, or you can fax it. Here, you can share this particular document with the admin, or you can put notes on the document. Okay, so to open up this document inside of your loop, bam, here we go. Agency disclosure form. So those of you who don't know what an agency disclosure form is, new agents, you are required by LREC to make sure that the clients that you are showing properties to or that you're assisting as a buyer's agent, they have hired you, so you work for them, and we will be required to get them to sign the customer information form, demonstrating that they are knowledgeable and they accept that you will be working with them as a realtor in their home search process, okay, or in their process. So once you complete the document, then it will populate. Remember, a document isn't really official unless you have signatures of all parties involved, okay, in the transaction ultimately. All right, we'll cover that in another training. So that's our buying document. Dotloop does allow you to docu-sign your documents right here in the system, and we will do a training on that. So here we have people. You can add your team for this transaction. So this is me, this is my transaction. I have the admin here that's in the transaction. So that means that that my admin can see that I've started a transaction. My admin is there to support me through this transaction and or review the transaction after it's done. So if I want to add someone, I'm going to add the listing agent to this property. I'll put the email address of the listing agent out there. And then I will identify this role. So this right now, Mr. Mahoney is a listing agent. Okay, any other additional information I will put in here. Of course, you want to put in, as much information as you need to. Everything in blue will be good to make sure that your file is on track. So there you go. The listing agent has been added to this loop. That means that this listing agent will have access to the loop. So you do not have to add an outside agent to your loop. You're only adding them to your forms because once again, you're giving them permission. So any agent inside of or on this team that you need to add, you can. Okay, but really you're going to add the admin and yourself temporarily on your loop. And then here's tasks. So you use tasks to coordinate activities with others. Yes, coordinate activities with others. So here are your various tasks for a buyer transaction: earnest money, contingency calendar, add an inspector, add a lender. So you can add anyone you want. Let's say we have our lender here. When will you take care of this task? When will you add the lender? When will you take care of this? You can put, I'm going to do it this week, and then it will give it us an assignment. I'm sorry, give it a date, and then you can assign it to, assigning it to myself. And then it will remind me to add my lender into the transaction. And that's for documentation purposes. So you can create your own timeline to remind you of certain things under tasks. If you don't want to use this section, you do not necessarily have to, but you have to use this section. Okay, let's click on the buy-sell agreement so you can see that this is the most updated buy-sell agreement. All right, it's the most updated buy-sell agreement. So if you complete this information, let's see here, I am the buyer's agent. My buyer will go here, okay? I may not know right offhand who the seller is, but I may know the listing agent for the property. And that's where I can add and put in a listing agent because I will have contacted by now the listing agent, and I know at the bottom of the form who the agent is here at the bottom of the MLS. All right, once I add this listing agent, you always want to add their email because you may have to send them a transaction. It automatically populates the address. It populates the financials that I put in there. I didn't put a closing date in here yet or contract date, offer date. I could probably add that because I'm going to submit this offer tomorrow, for example. And then I'm going to submit when it's going to expire. I may know that already. It may expire by the 17th. And any other additional information that you may have, and it'll auto-fill that. So here's your instant buy-sell agreement, one of the most important documents in real estate. So Louisiana real estate agreement to buy and sell. We'll make sure it says that. You can, once again, guarantee that you have the most recent document. So you'll just work line by line, step by step. Don't skip anything. All right. And we will have a future training on how to complete this information. But main thing is, you know, that you have an instant back office support. I don't want to share this document with Dotloop. So let's leave back out of our loop. And here we're at the front of the profile. And now I can see my folder, my loop, my transaction right here as a new transaction inside of my office, in my Dotloop office, or transaction desk actually. And any other property that you have, you want them to pop up. If you don't have a photo, this is what it's going to look like. But you want them to pop up and be here in your loop, because ultimately you will submit your loops once all your documentation is done and you're heading to closing. You'll submit your loop for review, and the admin will review your loop to confirm that all documents are here, signed properly, and we're good to go for closing. You'll also upload. Let's go to the area where you can upload your documents. I don't know if we talked about that or not. Just should be able to add documents here, and then you will browse and upload. I'm going to upload. Let's say you do your buy-sell agreement inside of transaction desk over in the matrix. Some people are comfortable with that or using that. That's fine. But for us to process your full commission, we need the file inside of Dotloop. So I encourage you to work in Dotloop from the beginning, and everything will be in there, but you can always upload right here. And so here I added an agency commission form right here in my file by browsing. You can also email or copy a document over to your email or from your email. All right, so that is adding a loop. If you have any questions, please reach out to me and let me know. I look forward to you enjoying the premium level of Dotloop. And of course, I look forward to you filling up your Dotloop dashboard. Tons and tons and tons of amazing properties that you are listing and or selling and purchasing. All right, thank you so much, and continued success, Elite Agents.